Good morning, everyone. It's Andrew with Supercharged Stocks. Good morning, Austin. It's Wednesday, March the 24th, midweek here. It's a rainy day here in Vancouver, but good morning to everyone. How are you today, Austin?
No, not too bad. How about yourself, Andrew?
Everything is good. We're going to do an interesting day today. We're going to take a little bit of a sidestep, and it really isn't. We're going to talk about something that has certainly been in the news this first quarter for the year, and that's crypto. And we're not going to try to cover all things crypto because that would be too intense a conversation. But we are going to jump into that waters just briefly, and we can't. Let's start just where you can't not talk about it because it's such a big influencer in the market, both with Ethereum and blockchain. So. And Bitcoin, a part of the blockchain. So, Austin, give me some of the background here that we kind of need to know about.
Well, I mean, we've kind of touched on it a little bit before in regards to how you mine Bitcoin. I think that's something we're going to take a much deeper dive into today. Essentially, Bitcoin's rise to power has been surrounded around a secure, currency that is digitally backed, that is, has something tangible behind it. That's a lot of fears that people have about our current system and how our current economy functions. So it started to rise to popularity through that. And then I think, especially in the first quarter of 2021, we've seen an absolute blow up in cryptocurrency with a number of different ones being promoted by a number of different people, from Elon Musk to, you even hear stories about NFL players that are getting their salaries converted into Bitcoin because they think that's better in the long run. All sorts of things like that. So it's really started to take off, and kind of like to your point, we can't really ignore it anymore.
No, you definitely can't, and there is a place for it. I think there's, without a doubt. I've always said that. Although even 3 years ago, when I first started kind of looking at it, I thought, it's that value conversation. What's the value here? And the way I always kind of looked at it was. It's hard to determine the value of this thing other than if you just looked at the energy cost to produce one. Now, you touched on another thing is one of the key factors is that it's decentralized, or we don't even have to call it that it's decentralized. In fact, it's just a tool for a peer-to-peer automatic exchange on a blockchain. And this is not new either. A blockchain is just any kind of accounting or ledger system. So what's different is that the way our system is currently set up, and the reason why China has leapfrogged light years ahead of us, is that we've got about 1 million intermediaries between every transaction that wants to get paid 0.1%, 1%, 0.001% on everything you do. And that sounds really minuscule, like how many, or like there's lots involved in anything you do, because 0.01% of every transaction is a big number off of the amount of transactions that we do. So we're almost handcuffed to some degree by our need for credit, especially through credit cards and whatnot. Whereas countries that didn't have systems that were really embedded and in place, that are cash cows, these are cash cows for banks and for credit cards and whatnot, were able to leapfrog quickly into use and have gotten used to the absorption rate of it, gotten used to not having to pay all these fees for every single transaction they ever do. And I think anyone would agree that in Canada, would scratch their heads and go, how many fees do I pay to my bank every year? And exactly what am I getting? Like, what exactly do you think you're getting?
No, exactly. You see it all the time. I mean, even anywhere from just a simple e-transfer fee. If you want to send somebody $10, sometimes it costs you $2.50 just to send that e-transfer. And all of a sudden you're $12.50 in the hole for what should have been a $10 transaction. You're going, how the hell did I get here? And that adds up over time.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I still have to actually physically go into the bank if I want to send a wire transfer. I mean, that baffles me. I don't understand. And I have to do that in the bank sometimes. So, but that's dinosaur stuff. I mean, we need to get away from that. So this is all part of the conversation. But I mean, trying to find, and as you mentioned, Elon Musk jumping into Bitcoin, that sent that thing, a lot higher because it legitimized it. Now, I hate using that word because, I mean, it's been legit for a while. And there's a ton of conversations, and this is just our first kind of foray into this because there's a whole philosophical conversation on moral. But is there ability to make money in this right now? And I'd say without a doubt, yes. One of the biggest for me to look at today is, do I want to jump in front of Bitcoin or Ethereum that have gone up like a rocket already? No, that's not my style. Now, I could be sitting here a year from now and those things could be up another 10 times. But where you could make some money and where you have seen incredible growth in the first quarter, never mind if you've gone back a full year, is the crypto miners, particularly in Canada. The first one that I knew of right off the bat is Frank Holmes' Hive. Hive Blockchain has shot up immensely. There's also Riot Blockchain and Hut 8 that are the kind of the big names that have seen massive run-ups. So maybe you want to kind of touch on a couple. Let's talk about Hive just really briefly first.
So yeah, essentially Hive, they do this Bitcoin mining, and their stock price, I believe it was sitting somewhere around 50 cents, and it went up to north of $5 very, very quickly. And their idea is, they're going to be a low cost operator. They're going to have a first mover advantage kind of thing into this sector. And there's a bunch of different companies that are offering that kind of the same idea. What it kind of boils down to, there's three things that you really need to have to be able to mine Bitcoin successfully. You need cheap electricity. That's the number one thing. You need access in coal, or maybe you don't, depending on kind of how your viewpoint goes to this. And you need to have leading Bitcoin mining pools. So these companies that are doing the Bitcoin mining need to be able to have access to, in my opinion, at least two out of these three things to be able to do this successfully.
Yes, which leads to my understanding is well over 65% of all Bitcoin mined and that wealth created is Chinese or Asian, and that's where all the mining happens for the large part. Partly because they've really jumped on this momentum. They started early and they started going hard. Two, their access to this cheap energy is incredible. And really, Max Kaiser, who is a huge advocate, I think anyone in the space would look to RT. He's on RT every day. He's a fun pundit, political pundit, but economic pundit. He's been championing not only Bitcoin but all crypto for quite some time. And he is the first person that really kind of set that I heard. I mean, there's lots of great people out there talking about crypto, of it being simply an energy arbitrage. That's all you're talking about. This is an energy arbitrage. If you can find a location that has cheap energy and you have access to it, then you can start mining because it is immensely energy consuming. And which also brings into, we've talked about before, the need for helium to cool these things. These are huge farms that are mining and doing hardcore calculations to create one of these coins. Never mind that you have to have all those key ingredients and materials in order to make all of these chips and these huge farms to cool these farms. So one of the ones, and we've talked about Riot, and I don't know enough about Riot other than it shot up to like $50. Also, Hut 8 is another big name that has a huge run up. But these all do the same thing. They've got different boards and different links and different whatnot. And we'll look at them a little bit more. But the reason why I wanted to look at them was, well, those things have already run up. I mean, those have had exceptional gains in the last while. So is there anyone then that would fit that model then that would have access to good, cheap energy and that would be able to get into this sector and at a good price so that you're not already paying the huge run-up for it?
Yeah, to me, I see one that kind of jumps off the page is actually one of the Canadian-based, actually based out of Alberta. Got to rep the home team a little bit, but Cryptostar is one that, and they've kind of taken the angle of really emphasizing that they can do this the most efficiently at the lowest cost as long as they are gaining access to the cheapest amount of energy. And they've put a deal together now. I believe it's a deal to stretch over the next 5 years in Alberta to have a fixed price on their power that is going to have them be one of the cheapest Bitcoin mining, cryptocurrency mining companies on the market. And I think that's hugely, hugely exciting.
Yeah, so that one did pop up, and obviously I'm a big fan of supporting Alberta as well. And that's not. I mean, that's a whole other ballgame altogether. But anyways, that company stood out because they signed this 5-year contract. I believe it's under 5 cents that they were able to get the energy at. But I'll have to confirm that. But we'd like to have them on. So if we can get them on somehow next week or the week after, I would have a bunch of questions for them because they are trading and they have volume. They do have a lot of volume. They're at a good key point, and there is interest there. So you can see that it's had a spike and it's had a bit of attention to it. And if you're taking the thesis, which is my initial one from Max Kaiser, of this is an energy arbitrage, and you've locked in a 5-year deal that is lower than the charts I've seen that even you can get in China. So if that, then that is something very, very interesting. One of the other things I kind of want to bring up there, along with that, is some of these other miners are buying equipment that is essentially just kind of used equipment that the Chinese used one season and they sell it off the next season. So that's more of an investigative report type of thing. I don't know if that's true or not, but if that's true, if you're buying secondhand stuff from China, that's maybe not the best model ever. So that's something we should look into as well with some of these miners. But I think once again, what happens is these miners get totally decimated on a downturn because they're like a leveraged approach to instead of just buying one crypto, you're buying the actual miner. But when things go well, they can really power up and start really pumping and pumping. And this is where I see there could be a very interesting play with Cryptostar specifically, because that's the only one that I could see that and that you could see that had this low cost of energy at a good price that hasn't been jumped on already, that hasn't gone through the roof, that there's a potential to make some money at.
And the key to that being, it seems like it's the only one that has this low energy access to electricity and power that can compete with what the Chinese can do on that front. That's the big marker. I think Canada produces 1% of the world's cryptocurrency compared to China sitting at somewhere around 65%. That's, I mean, obviously we've got catching up to do. We're not a country the size or the scale of China, but we need to be, if we want to be involved in this market, 1% isn't going to cut it for us. Even the United States, a country much more comparable in size to China, is sitting at 7%.
Yeah.
So for the West, we need to be kind of looking at this and saying, China's running away with this right now, as they are. Yes. I mean, on a lot of fronts. We could. That's a much deeper conversation that we could have another time. But specifically when it comes to cryptocurrency, do you want China to have control over 65% of a new, currently unregulated? I mean, we're all assuming it is going to be regulated at some point, but currently unregulated currency, for me, not particularly.
No, that's the key function. Is people always talk about will this be used? Will this be adopted? It's got a very low adoption rate right now. I mean, it's got a lot of news, but really, as far as the economy and the world, it's very low, which also means it can grow. But at the end of the day, and this, not to be too crude, the reason why we use the U.S. dollar and we're pegged to the U.S. dollar is that it's at the barrel of a gun. I mean, can you support and back your currency as being the world currency? That's never going to change. I don't care what kind of utopian wish you have of one world government, we all just get along. It's never going to happen. I mean, it just can't. It's been tried before. It won't. So one has to look at this realistically and think, if it has the adoption and the success that people in this space want, there is no way, whether it's China or whether it's the US, whether it's Russia, whether it's Israel, whoever you want to talk about is going to allow some decentralized group in one area of the country to have control of all the wealth. It's nonsense. It's silly to think that'll occur. But that doesn't mean that in the meantime you can't make money there. It doesn't mean that this is possibly, I mean, not to go down the conspiracy well, an R&D project that all of these countries are just overseeing, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't, let the market sort it out, and then they'll come in with, as many people talk about, their, the Fed coin or whatever coins, and each country is making their own coin right now as well. So will all of these coins be used? No, 99% of them will fall along the wayside and be utterly useless and might have some use or might be bought if they're lucky. But maybe Bitcoin survives, maybe Ethereum survives, maybe they get a deal with some sort of country to convert. That's a bigger, larger conversation, but that could take years to solve that and to whittle that out. That's not happening anytime soon. But in the meantime, if I was looking at this and I think, okay, why are we not? If we're only 1% of it in Canada, why wouldn't you want to take advantage of this? Isn't there a way that we could get involved in this somehow? You go, yeah, we can now with Cryptostar, based out of Calgary, with this access to cheap energy. So I want to get them on. So I want to get this Cryptostar company on and really hit them with some good questions, because it looks like to me something where there's room for quick growth. And from what I just pulled up here too, they just closed a $25 million institutional round of financing. So this isn't Mickey Mouse. No. That's tiny in comparison to some of these giant companies. and certainly tiny compared to like Ant Pool in China, which was just ginormous. But that's good money, serious money for a stock trading at what it's trading to be able to raise to start leveraging to see what they can do.
Yeah, it is for sure. And one kind of interesting thing to touch on as well with this is we've talked about the continued rise and the kind of media hype around it as well. Is Tesla now full? I know Elon Musk kind of made a tweet about it a few weeks ago that he was considering it. It's official now that Tesla will accept Bitcoin in exchange to buy its products. So that's something that's going to be, are we going to see that popping up more further down the road? I don't know. But I think you'll start to see other companies get involved with that.
And that's the key is can you use your coin to purchase things? Because at the end of the day, people still look at this as it's converted. Like I have a Bitcoin, it's converted to what? To the US dollar. That's what they're looking at. So until it becomes a source of trade for other things, we're still too early. But that's, once again, this could take years and it could take a decade to resolve. But make no mistake, it has a place. And I like this being the kind of starting point for us to engage others and to also to challenge others. And also, I mean, I don't pretend to be an expert. It's have people say, oh, Andrew, you're way off base. It's this, it's that, it's whatever. And have them on to help explain to us their position, how they see it. Because it comes with a huge model or philosophical ideology behind it, especially for those who are believers, that is noble. There's lots of good in it, but also possibly naive. So it's certainly going to be interesting for us to look at this. And right now, because I never like to buy things as they're skyrocketing, I'm not a momentum or a trader. That's not my thing. I always say, I'm not a trader anyway. I like this Cryptostar because it's in its infancy. It's done a big round of financing, and this energy play. So just off of that, I want to know a bit more. So let's see what we can do and see if we can get them on here for next week. And of course, anybody reach out to Austin and I, send us an email because we want to hear from you some of the questions that we should ask. And let's start looking at this a bit serious because it is part of the innovation package. And I think we'll touch on later down the line how energy fits into this whole 4G revolution, how it fits into this kind of future vision of the world. Why does crypto make sense? How it all kind of comes together when you see, oh, okay, hold on, there's a bigger idea at play.
There is for sure, and I think it's important to kind of remember that people have been expecting this Bitcoin thing to go away for a while now. You know, people have been talking about this for 4 or 5 years, even a little bit longer in some circles, but really kind of in the mainstream for the last 4 or 5 years. And there's been a group of people that have kind of said, no, this is eventually going to go away. It's not going to be a thing. And there's a bit of hysteria, a bit of hype around it. I don't think it's going anywhere. I think that, like you touched on it before, every country's looking at developing their own federally backed one of these. So it's not going anywhere. This is going to be part of our future. It's going to be part of the path forward. So we have to understand it. We have to find ways to implement it. And then importantly, going back to the way that you and I are looking at this, is getting involved with these companies that are at the forefront of delivering this kind of product. And that's where Cryptostar is exciting, because you see this model that's happened with other mining companies as far as HUD 8 and Riot, and you touched on Hive as well. If you look at the pattern of where they've gone, following getting deals done, following getting some results, you can see it's a very strong way to get involved and make some money getting behind a company like this.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks, Austin. This is our first touch on to the subject, and let's see what we can do for next week. Get them on Friday. We're going to talk a little bit about Secure, I think.
Yeah, so Friday we'll talk about Secure, which is Globex Data's web encrypted. It's a messaging service, so they have a email and messaging service that is fully encrypted. So we're going to touch on that a lot more, kind of take a little bit of a deep dive into not only what they do, what kind of services they offer, but why I think, and I know you think as well, that kind of thing is important for the future and going forward. So I'm excited to get involved with that as well.
No, for sure. That one is definitely interesting for me because it now more than ever, having some privacy and having your own ownership of your data and choosing to have ownership of your rights to sending your own messages to people without it being read, without it being sifted through or data mined. To me, it has nothing to do with well, if you're not saying anything bad, you shouldn't have to worry. It's not relevant to me. I don't care. No one has the right to be overseeing and watching what I say anyway. So I really like this company. We're going to get into it a little bit more, and we might actually be speaking with Tomo Gold, because they might actually be here in Vancouver in town. So we might get a chance to speak with David Grondin, who we touched on earlier on Monday, about some of the results, and see what he has to say about what the results were as well. I'll get that finalized and known, but that's going to be an interesting Friday. Thanks so much, Austin. Enjoy the rest of the day. Any last thoughts?
No, just again, looking forward. Appreciate everyone tuning in and listening, and get after us with any questions that you guys have, because we're happy to answer them and happy to talk deeper about this stuff. So looking forward to Friday, and hope you have a good rest of your day, Andrew.
Take care.
Bye-bye.